The car rental business isn't dead. You're just doing it wrong. In this video, I'm gonna show you that this isn't a lie. After you watch this whole video, I promise you, you're gonna be like, oh, no wonder I didn't hit my first $10,000 a month in my car rental business. It makes sense now. Because trust me, it wasn't until I figured this out that I started being able to make a difference in my business that eventually got me to scale to $150,000 per month. Plus the others that I've told this to, like Justin. Justin is a student of mine. He has his own car rental business. For example, he started on Turo. He had his Turo account active for a week and a half. He had absolutely no bookings. As soon as we hopped on our first call, that afternoon, he already secured his first booking. So yeah, this is gonna be the only video that you need. You'll figure it out finally, and you're gonna know how to finally start hitting your $10,000 a month and scale beyond that. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, because anytime somebody hears car rental business, they immediately come in the comments, they start to scream about, this business is too saturated. This business is dead. You're too late to start this business. Find another one. So what I wanna do in this video is break down systematically every single objection in regards to the car rental business and why people say it doesn't work anymore and why that's complete BS. And I'm gonna show you why that belief is just flat out wrong. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna say the objection, I'm gonna explain why the objection actually exists and why people believe it. Then I'm gonna show you why it's wrong from real experience, real case studies, and real numbers. Now let's get into it. One of the most common objections when it comes to car rentals that people think going into the business are true is that the market is too saturated. Car rentals are too saturated, and that is just not the case. I have a student, for example, his name is Justin. We just had our first mentorship session this morning. When he got into the business, he already has 3 cars. They were listed on Turo, for example. He's had the cars on there for about a week and a half. He didn't get any bookings. We go through his Turo profile this morning. I optimized all of his settings. I made sure that he was optimized for his area. And before you know it, literally several hours later, he already secured his first booking. He sent me a text with the screenshot proof, and he told me, hey, I got my first booking, right? And so it's not that the market is too saturated. Now, if a beginning operator, and this is in regards to Turo, hops into Turo, puts their car up, it's not getting booked for weeks at a time, they're gonna say, oh, my market's too saturated. That's not the case at all. It's you don't know how to optimize your listing, you don't know how to market your business, and you're really just lazy when it comes down to research. Maybe you didn't pick the right vehicles for your market, or you just don't have your systems optimized to make it attractive for people to want to book from you. It's not just about buying a car that you think is gonna work and then putting it on a platform or offering it for private rentals and then getting surprised when there is no bookings, because there's an actual system behind these kinds of things. People also say that regulations are increasing, so it makes it harder to get into the business. This is not the case at all. People confuse insurance with regulations. In my own experience, people think that because insurance companies are canceling their policies for commercial hosts or individual policies are not covering car sharing or anything like that, that means that regulations are tightening up. That's not the case at all. What happens is, yeah, insurance companies are going out of business. Insurance companies are constantly changing their policies, but this is nothing new. And this has always been in the world of business forever. What people don't understand is they don't understand how to pivot in business. People rely on one insurance company or they rely on this one regulation. And as soon as it changes, they say, well, too much has changed. I can't do this business anymore. And that's just not true. They just have to pivot. They have to get around what's happening and what changes are happening in the industry. And the only way to do that is to pivot. So when you have a commercial provider, like in my experiences, and they cancel your policy, you go find another one. Maybe that one's not available in your state and you have to do some deep digging, right? You hire a licensed insurance broker to get you through this, to navigate this. You go on Turo Facebook groups, you figure out what are other people using for their insurance. I actually made another video about insurance as well, so you can check that out to check out the different kinds of coverages. But really what it comes down to is just pivoting. And people are lazy. They don't pivot. People aren't business minded. And so they're not pivoting when insurance changes are happening or when regulation changes are happening. They're just sticking with the same systems that they think worked before. And that's just not the case. If you think that way in any type of business, you're not gonna be around for very long. Maybe you did it like I've done it before. You have on-trip coverage, you have the damage waivers, you have the excess liability through a company I used to use called Prime Insurance. And then you figure out that the policy is not attainable after you've made a couple of claims, the premiums are way too high. Now regulations have changed and the insurance premiums are just out of control and you're literally not profitable at all. So I could have easily just canceled the policy, gotten rid of the fleet I was managing and said, well, it's not doable anymore because my insurance company is making it unattainable for me. Instead, what I decided to do was I decided to go for off-trip coverage and on-trip coverage as 2 separate issues, and then having a CSL or an excess liability policy as another separate issue, depending on my risk profile. And all I did was restructure my business. I have a trust on my business and I don't have any assets pertaining to me within that business, and all the assets within the business stay in one LLC that's owned by a trust, and then separating the coverages out from off-trip coverage and on-trip coverage, and really learning the difference between the two, and knowing that insurance is not just a one glove fits all type of situation, even if you have that kind of policy. So that makes it complete BS when people say regulations are changing, because you just have to pivot. And I navigated the business longer without that insurance policy than I did with the insurance policy, and I made more money than ever. So if that doesn't tell you anything, there you go. People say there's too much competition in the market. I already talked about market saturation, which is more like if you have cars on Turo and Turo is saturated, or within your niche, it is saturated. But when it comes to competition, it's not just about saturation, it's about each individual company that's competing against you, right? So you have Turo and Hertz, and then you have exotic car rental companies competing with each other. And then you have newer companies popping up like 6T or 6, I think is what it's called. And they're all competing against each other, right? There's Rent5 now, which is a competing app to Turo. And there's always going to be competition. If I had thought that way from the beginning, I would not be in business today. There was so many competitors coming into my market. I was in San Diego. We grew the largest exotic car rental company in the city. And I had so many competitors coming in that if and I did start to panic. I was like, oh my God, there's so much competition coming in. I'm losing rentals. What you have to do is you have to make yourself stand out when it comes to the competition. Again, so many competitors came in, and if I had just preyed on my business's downfall through that competition, I would not have been in business for a very long time. What ended up happening was those companies did not have the proper systems. A lot of them went out of business quick. Think about it like a restaurant, right? There's so many restaurants that open up and they go out of business so fast, but there's also some really, really successful restaurants that just multiply like cockroaches and they end up everywhere so fast. And that's what happens with exotic car rental companies, regular car rental companies. They come and go. People don't have the right systems and people don't have the right marketing. In the end, there's only 2 companies that stuck around in San Diego with my competition, and they were both in business before I started my business. So all the competition that was coming and going, they didn't last and they ended up going out of business. So it is literally not a concern at all. If you are persistent, you have the right systems, the right team, and the right marketing, you are gonna thrive and you're gonna beat out the competition. And I love this one. This is the economic collapse is coming. Well, first of all, most big businesses in the world, major corporations all started during recessions, right? And so that's the first thing to know. Well, in my experience, when it comes to starting a business in a downtime, especially when it comes to car rentals, the car rental business is supposed to double in growth over the next 5 years. So it's supposed to go from a $100 billion industry to a $200 billion industry in the next 5 years. Do you understand how explosive that growth is? Do you know how long it has taken for the car rental industry to get to $100 billion? And now it's just all of a sudden gonna double in 5 years. That is an amazing growth expectation. You can argue, well, luxury and exotic cars aren't needed, or economy cars are gonna shrink. And sure, like maybe during a recession, the general economics of everything shrinks to an extent. But if you are a good competitor and you stand out, you will have explosive growth. First off, car rentals aren't going anywhere. If cars are getting repossessed and people are losing their cars, that means people are gonna need to rent more cars. Just because people can't afford to buy cars anymore doesn't mean that people don't need the cars anymore. People always need cars. Car rentals are explosive. Companies like Hertz and Enterprise, they don't have the inventory in most cities. If you go to them on any given day, especially during peak season, they're not gonna have the inventory that you want. And so you can specialize yourself in your niche to stand out from competitors and the economic collapse, right? So when it comes to economy cars, people always need those. Now when it comes to exotic cars, these are people who are already rich, a lot of these people. People that are renting Lamborghinis and Ferraris and those kinds of things, they're already super rich. And the economy collapsing doesn't necessarily affect them. They're gonna continue to spend. Yeah, sure, that there might be a little bit less here and there, but there's also new people coming in when the economy is collapsing. Think about it back in 2020 during COVID, I was in the car rental industry at that time, and the economy was essentially collapsed for a period of time, and the exotic car rental business literally saw explosive growth. So many companies popped up, and we were doing more revenue than we had ever done in the past. And we were in such a high demand business that argument is completely false, and it's just a fallacy. Because when it comes to luxury and exotic vehicles, people that have that money, they're still going to continue to spend that money. And when it comes to the regular working class or poor people who need vehicles, right? I mean, economy cars cater to regular working class, they cater to poor people. People always need cars and they always need transportation. So this business is not going anywhere. It is one of the only recession-proof businesses that are out there currently. Car rentals aren't scalable. Car rentals don't work long-term. That is is completely false. In my experience, when I've seen people coming and going in and out of the business, they think because it's so easily accessible, and it's mainly Turo's fault. Turo is a double-edged sword because it gives a lot of people access into the industry, but it also puts a lot of people into business that have no business experience. So what tends to happen is people will go buy a brand new car, which is already a number one mistake, unless you have invoice pricing or below invoice pricing. People go and buy a brand new car, they pop it on Turo, it starts renting for a month or two, they buy another new car, they buy another new car. I've literally seen this so many times. They buy 5 new cars, and I've even had people come to me as students that end up having several vehicles that they're not getting enough rentals, right? And I'm like, well, how'd you get into this many vehicles in the first place? And like, well, I rented a couple of them and they started doing well, and now the maintenance is catching up to me, the depreciation is catching up to me. This business isn't scalable. You can't invest in depreciating assets. And if you go in it with that mindset, then that's true. If you don't do market research, you're not buying the right types of vehicle, you're not learning about protection from maintenance issues, you're not learning about depreciation curves, then this business is not scalable for you. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the economics of the business that a lot of people don't study and they don't take care of it. And that's why this is complete BS argument that this isn't scalable. If this isn't scalable, tell me why there are so many exotic car rental companies that keep adding to their fleet, why there are so many Turo hosts that continue to accumulate vehicles, co-host vehicles, and they've grown their fleets to hundreds of vehicles, doing millions of dollars a year. And this is also the case for boutique private car rental companies. There's so many of them popping up and doing really, really well, and they continue to grow their fleet, that it does not make sense to have the argument of this isn't a scalable business. Just because you bought a car that wasn't right for your market and now you're swimming in payments that you can't afford because this is the car you wanted, or you thought this was a good choice because it's a Toyota and it's reliable and everyone wants one. If you're using that as a basis to why this isn't scalable, then that's completely wrong. You need to use tools like RentScout.io to figure out, if you're doing Turo, what cars right in your market. If you're doing exotic and luxury cars, you need to figure out what your competition is doing, what the successful competition is in your market or near your market. And you really need to figure out through loss leaders and other types of vehicles, if you're doing luxury or exotic cars, what cars are going to scale. So if you're wanting to do exotic cars and your market has no exotic car rental businesses existing, you going out and buying a Lamborghini is a complete wrong step. You need to learn about consignment and co-hosting. Therefore, you need to get cars that are not yours that you can then use to test the market from people that already own these types of vehicles. That way you avoid going underwater and then saying this business isn't scalable. That leads kind of right into the next objection, which is, well, I don't have good credit and I don't have a lot of money to start this business. I started this business when I was completely broke. My credit score was literally in the 400s, I'm not exaggerating. I didn't even have my own vehicle to drive. How did I, within the first year, grow to 10 exotic cars if that was truth? That you need money, you need good credit. That is not the case at all. There's a thing called co-hosting, whatever you want to call it, vehicle property management, zero capital fleet system. You can throw all kinds of terms around, but at the end of the day, you are a property manager for vehicles, which means you're taking investors who want tax write-offs or who want to drive a cool car, they buy one for your business, you manage it on their behalf, or you find existing vehicle owners. This can be done for economy cars, luxury cars, exotic cars. You find these kinds of people and it becomes really easy once you get your foot in the business and you know how to do it. You can scale like that as fast as you want. I scaled from 10 to 60 cars in the matter of 2 months. I didn't buy a single one of those cars. And using that argument that you need good credit, you need a lot of capital to grow your fleet, is just not the case. And a lot of people are scared of consignment because they don't know where to find investors, they don't know where to find co-hosts. And that's what, instead of admitting that fault that, well, I don't know how to get these people, is saying, well, that's just a pipe dream. That's just not the truth. That can't happen. You're just trying to scam. You're trying to make people believe something that's not true, and that's not the case at all. This business model has existed for a very, very long time. I personally know companies that have used this business model for 25 years. So if that doesn't tell you anything, there you go. People are gonna abuse your cars. People are gonna steal your cars. They're gonna scam you. They're gonna ride them like they're Hot Wheels. Those are one of the most common objections why people don't wanna get into the business. And though to an extent this can be the truth, what it comes down to, and I've personally have went through this as well, is renting to poor quality clients and not having the proper screening systems before you even take a client on. If you are just taking anybody's dollar, you're definitely gonna end up in trouble. You're gonna end up with expensive mistakes, people smoking in your cars, people stealing your vehicles, and all those type of situations are going to be all too common. In my personal experience, I've done this in the beginning. I didn't require security deposits. I didn't do any background checks. I didn't do any MVR, which is motor vehicle record screenings. I literally would just rent to anyone that would pay the rental price for the car. And I lost a lot of money this way, and I encountered a lot of bad clients. If you have the proper checks, if you do identity checks, MVR checks, background checks. You take a big security deposit on a major credit card. You have a proper rental agreement. You do all of these things, and you don't have to do every single one of them. Obviously, if you do all of them, they're a benefit. If you take certain parts and pieces out of that whole process, you are going to get quality clients, and these types of things are going to be very, very uncommon. You're going to run into these types of issues with all businesses. People are going to try to scam you. People are going to be malicious in your business, but if you take the proper precautions, this doesn't have to be something to worry about, and this doesn't have to be something stopping you from getting into the business. And a lot of operators end up going out of business because they are just too lenient. They are too emotional when it comes to their business. They're too emotional when it comes to the clients in their business. They let clients extend without payment because they fall for their sob stories. They rent to people that don't meet the requirements. Maybe they budge on one requirement in their process, and if they hadn't budged on that one requirement, they would still be in business, right? Because over the long term, that's how you're going to end up having a lot of mistakes in your business, and that's what eventually what's going to drive you out of the car rental industry and a lot of other businesses. So the key takeaway is you need to have the proper screening systems, and you need to have requirements for your clients that should hardly ever be bent unless there's an extenuating circumstance, like maybe it's a celebrity and you know they're well off, and you know that if something does happen, you're going to be able to hold them accountable. And for the final objection, it's going to be time commitment. People believe that they need to spend a lot of time on their car rental business. I don't know why, in order for it to succeed. And honestly, it is believable, because how are you going to have a fleet of 200 cars or 50 exotics or 30 exotics and you don't have to spend a lot of time managing it? But that's with any business, and it's about letting go of control. And I've experienced this myself. When I had a fleet of 60 cars, I was doing operations every day. I was still going and washing cars. I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing because I was afraid to let go of control of the business. And this goes for anything. Let's talk about Gordon Ramsay for his restaurants, for example, right? He's the one cooking the food, making high quality food. In his mind, I'm sure when he first broke off, he was like, well, how can I open another restaurant and leave my other restaurant with somebody else cooking my food, right? And so when it comes to the car rental business, it's the same exact concept. It's, well, how do I let go of control? How do I know that the check-ins and checkouts are going to be done correctly? I need to always be on it. I need to always be in the business. I need to handle every accident, every insurance claim, and that's just not the truth. I just dropped the most recent video about how you can systemize your business with virtual assistants, mobile detailers, contract workers, task rabbits, technology, documentation systems, and all of these things combined, that you really don't have to spend a lot of time on your car rental business in order to grow it. Obviously, if you're expecting to step out of the business in the first 2 weeks or a month, that's unrealistic. But once you've scaled your business and you have systems in place for every step along the way in your business, from acquiring new vehicles to acquiring new investors, to your rental process system, to your insurance claim workflows, then you don't need to spend a lot of time in your business. This business is not a time constraint for you. You can have a car rental business and do many other businesses at the same time. For me, once I got my fleet to doing $150,000 a month, I literally only spent 2, 3, 4 hours a day on the business max. I had all of the time I wanted in the world, and that's when I wanted to work on the business. I could go days in a row without spending any time on my business. So that is just one of the worst objections, because yes, it can be an involved business, but just like any other business in any industry, if you have the systems built out, you don't need to spend a lot of time on it. So no, the car rental business is not going bust anytime soon. I'm actually more bullish on private car rentals than I have ever been. I've been in the business for 8 years, and the signs that I'm seeing for explosive growth when it comes to the private car rental business is insane. Turo is going to put a lot of people out of business, and it's gonna unsaturate the market, and it's gonna let private car rental operators that know what they're doing at the time that it comes be very, very successful. So if you found this video useful and you're inspired to start hitting your first $5,000 to $10,000 or more months in your car rental business, I have something for you. I do a limited number of one-on-one strategy calls where we map out your best starter vehicles, pricing, renter qualification systems, deposit structure, and your first 60-day scale plan. So if that sounds like it's for you, click the first link in the description and go ahead and book a call with me. If you like this video and you found it helpful, thank you again for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with any other objections that I'm happy to clear up for you, and we'll see you in the next video.